have only one of those so far. If you have a public comment to share, fill out the green card, give it to the young lady on the side, and we'll take you up in the order received. We restrict our public comments to 3 minutes, so please try to honor that, so that if we do have others later on, there will be time for everyone. And Mike O'Gara will be our only person so far in the public comment period.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike O'Gara. I'm a member of the Sun Valley Area Neighborhood Council. I drove up from Los Angeles to petition you to put the one station, high-speed train station, that's going to be put in San Fernando Valley at the intersection of Brantford Street and San Fernando Road. This intersection is where three highly impoverished committees come together: Pacoima, Arleta, Sun Valley. It's a highly blighted area, non-residential. Most businesses are in the auto dismantling business. There are large parcels of land available there. The northwest corner of this intersection would be an ideal location for a large bus barn and an elevated car park. San Fernando Road at this area is not heavily trafficked by autos or trucks. Most trucks use Glen Oaks Boulevard, which parallels San Fernando Road to the northeast. This intersection is 4.5 miles from the Bob Hope Airport, which at the worst of times can be reached in 20 minutes. East-west bus routes along San Fernando Road can access north-south bus routes at Van Nuys Boulevard, Sheldon Street, Laurel Canyon Boulevard, Lancashire Boulevard, Selman Boulevard, and Vineland Boulevard. So it's a great transit corridor. This location is about midway between the Palmdale and the Union Station stations. There's presently no challenges to this location, and a high-speed train station would be a huge stimulus for an economically challenged area. Additionally, there's plenty of space here, and it would be an ideal location for a maintenance and repair yard for high-speed repairs to the train, or high-speed repairs to the trains.
We'll take high-speed repairs. Thank you, Mike. And if you have something in writing that you can leave with the secretary, that would be helpful.
It's pretty chicken scratch.
Well, maybe this will work. And Rita Westby will be next from CARD.
Thank you. I'm Rita Westby. I'm with Californians Advocating Responsible Rail Design, and I'm here to ask you to make the committee meetings that you're hearing today, both the exec admin meeting that was earlier and this operations meeting, accessible to the public beyond the letter of the law, basically. Specifically, I'm asking that you webcast the meetings. And let me explain the reason why it's important for stakeholders and the public. So I've been following these meetings, both so the operations and exec and these committee meetings have been started back in December, and I've been following these meetings very closely. And some of them, quite a few of them, have been audio taped, but it's very difficult to follow along and keep educated real time without having that information before going into the board meetings on Thursday. And so a lot of the committee meetings have very important discussions being held today. And then those discussions come to a recommendation that you give to the full board tomorrow, and it's in the interest of time, and I entirely appreciate that because you have an awful lot of agenda items to discuss all in one meeting. So I do appreciate having this sort of arrangement. But what happens for the public is that the meetings, if they are audio taped, are not actually available until 48 hours later, which is an amazing turnaround, but it's still not good enough for the public and for stakeholders to keep up and be educated to a sufficient level tomorrow, basically. And if you were to web stream them, then we could see them across the state. I mean, it's a statewide, it's this huge project, and I think it's very important for people to be informed real time. So we're asking that these meetings be webcast and also videotaped. Audio tape is not quite the same because there are no minute marks. We don't necessarily recognize who's speaking. It's just a very different experience. So I would ask that, you've been having meetings going through the state, and I think that's a very good way of having accessibility as well. Please check your venues very carefully and see if there is that infrastructure, the logistics of having web streaming possible. I think that's important to do. And I'd also ask that the special meetings as well be webcast and recorded. I did attend the special meeting last week, and that was in San Francisco. It was in Judge Kopp's office. And when I asked him afterwards whether it had been recorded in any form, he told me it had not been, because it is not required by law to be recorded. And what I'm asking you is to maybe step above the law and think about the context of this large project and maybe make it as accessible as possible. So, and I would also like to thank Mr. Barker for making efforts to make today's meeting recorded. Thank you.
Rita, let me first compliment you on the hard work that CARD is putting into this project and the attempt at bringing people together all the way down to Gilroy and all over the place. I know it's exhausting for you four ladies that began the program, and we appreciate that effort. This meeting is being webcast. And is that right, Trish?
Yeah, that's not right.
No.
You're trying.
Videotaped for posting on Friday.
Okay. Well, we're getting there. Fits and starts, but we're getting there. The objective is to do as you have indicated, so that there's real-time opportunity for people to see and to understand what's occurring. It may take a while. Part of it's a budget problem. We don't have a budget. And just as all the other organizations in the state, we don't have a budget for the coming year yet, and it may go on clear until November. So we have to protect every dime that we have in order to not run out of money before the budget's created for the year. We'll try. We know what you're saying is a good thing to do, and we'll take it into consideration and try to do it as quickly as we have resources to do it. Now, are there any other public comments? The green cards. All right, then we'll move on to the agenda. The minutes of the prior meeting are available for your review and approval. Russ, do you have any comments to make? Entertain a motion then to approve the minutes as presented. And now second, is there debate? Any dissent? That motion is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda goes down to our monthly program team and program management report. And we'll begin that now. Tony, if you would, and Mark would like to step forward, and can you do a duet at one podium without
He's bigger than me, this is not right. He's got bigger shoulders.
Well, Tony, there aren't many people around that are bigger than you, so
I'm not sure about that. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, let me start by saying that Mark and I have agreed, finally, I think, on the approach that we're going to make with the, wait a minute, I've been told not to call it the measles chart. I can't remember what the name of it is.
Environmental.
Oh yes, the environmental chart. The one that's
let's get it down now.
EMS.
EMS. I'm not going to say go ahead. The EMS chart, and that's what we're going to call it now, or milestone chart, which is going to be
Environmental milestone schedule.
cool. So let's, for the sake of other people, so the alphabet soup is minimized, let's call it the milestone chart.
It is the milestone chart, which is a real overview of where we see the project going to reach the Rodden Nod in particular for the phase 1 section, though it does also incorporate the full statewide. What we were asked to do is to come together to agree a common approach. In the end we did. We agreed with Mark's team to split out the admin document basically. What we were doing was taking the work we carried out as far as the admin, which is a huge block of work, and saying some of that was really part of the final draft EIR and ultimately the final EIR work that's being done for Rodden, or towards that end. I think in fairness that we pulled out the technical reports. We saw that as a different animal. We both agreed on that. We also agreed that we would stop the the marking at the admin side, and we both agreed what percentage of the work would be cleared by then, and in effect start from scratch, calling it zero if you look at the chart, when we got to the draft and work forward beyond that. And that gave perhaps a much more realistic position of where we're going to be as it relates to the final document. In essence, when you get to the bottom line, it didn't make a huge difference to the overall program side of it. And if you look at the figures, you can see that. And that was because of the weightings that we were applying on the top to where we were on particular sections within the environmental process. We did, again, in conjunction with Mark's team, agree to alter those percentages. So they were meeting both the PMO's thoughts relative to where we were going to go and where we thought we were going to be. And I think that's the position that we're taking. We want to give it to you to comment on. And it's a major shift, and we are more comfortable now collectively that what we're saying on here meets the target dates that we're aiming at for the Rotterdam.
I'll just say that we do concur with that.
All right. Are we going to go through the
Yes.
milestone chart?
This really, the bottom line is on the ARA funding that we are still predicting. Remember, this is the June chart that we're working on, but we're still predicting that we'll meet the rod and knot dates. There is a slippage in Palmdale to LA, but not to the effect that it's
Not on the critical path.
It's not on the critical path, no. So all the critical path pieces, as we stand today, still hold. There are some challenges with that, and as we move through the rest of the report, we can raise some of the challenges that we see out there.
All right. Let me put something on the record, Tony, that I already know the answer to, but which came up on the record last time, so I'd like to get it back on the record. I asked you about keeping the schedule in regard to the San Francisco to San Jose corridor, and there was a suggestion that 30 additional days had been lost. Now, that's the way I interpreted your comment. I understand that your comment was not intended to indicate that, and I'd like you to reaffirm what you intended then and note now that the project is on schedule.
I can note now that the project is still on schedule. I don't remember the details of the 30-day delay. I know that Dominic has talked to you about it, and he's talked to me, but I can't remember the details of it.
All right. Well, that's all the more reason that we have the recordings of the program, although what's past is past, and it's not necessary to be concerned about it, except that I misunderstood, and if I misunderstood, probably others did too.
Yeah.
And so if we can make sure that everyone realizes that our 4 eligible corridors are on schedule to receive the ARA funds before the deadlines, which the study rod and knot deadlines are September 2011.
I concur with that, and I regret if I said something previously that misled that.
No problem.
I
Just
think
so everybody understands, we have some non-technical people in the room. ROD is record of decision. NOD is notice of determination. And those are the legal procedures that occur at the end of an environmental document when it's certified by ourselves and by the Federal Railroad Administration and is recorded as a final
by the state.
And that has to be done before any contracting can be accomplished for the project.
If we go to the general overview, I think what I would like to say is, though, if you look at the last 3 or 4 weeks for the team at large, rather than what's been said down in the June report, which we will come to in a second.
Where are you looking at?
I'm sorry, on the next page. It's called the program, the high-speed train program.
Key issues?
CAHSRA program.
Are you looking at
Opposite the station.
the 3 bottom dots in the under program?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
really what I'm saying is that some of the points that have been raised previously, we brought to higher attention as it relates to where we're going and on the critical path, what have we got to do to get there. And one of the things that we were waiting for more than anything else was to find out where were we going with the FRA relative to the ARA grants. What were the stipulations that we were going to lay down? And in the last 3 weeks we have just done that. We have a clear indication from the FRA of the direction we should go. We have to resubmit the ARA funds in all 4 sections, which is a decision taken by the executive, Mr. Roland van Ark, in conjunction with the authority board to move forward on all 4 of the sections. We have to resubmit those with a lot more detail. We have to conclude how much we can do and what we can't do, whether we have operational use of those sections, even though no high-speed train may well go on them once they're built. The amount of detail that the FRA has requested is now clear. We've completed virtually what we have to do, and that's going to be completed in the sense of the FRA by Friday of this week. It's been a huge effort, it is ongoing. Once that is complete, and our dollar value is $3.125 billion, and how we're going to spend that, where we're going to spend that, what the operational requirements are, what the economic returns are on that. The decision was also taken to go after approximately another 900 million of the 2.1 billion that's available. That also has to be completed by this Friday, and the decision was taken by the authority board to go after a 70-30 match, which could bring another 1.4 billion roughly to the existing 3.125 we have. And that money will be taken, and each of the 4 sections we've allocated that amount, or roughly that amount, to see how much more we can do to give us interoperability on those sections of running trains. That's been a huge effort in the last 4 weeks, and relates to the second bullet that's down there. We had clear instructions, took the instructions, got the direction from the executive, chief executive officer, and we've been working on that full time basically.
You're talking about the second bullet being the BNSFUP meetings?
Well, associated with the FRA and the question about the next round of funding.
I understand.
Yeah.
The second bullet of the lower portion.
And that really is a highlight of the, I'd say, the last 3 weeks, and has given us a firm direction of what we have to do to hit the rod and nod dates. It's given a really hard core of work for the gang to get into. I don't know if Roland, if you want to add to the fact that we've got money on all 4 sections, and only one, perhaps, section can go through.
First, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just a quick update on the funding. We will report on it tomorrow at the board meeting, but as Tony has already indicated, in consultation with the FRA, it's clear that the FRA wants to apply the ARA funds to a single section of the line, that they want to ensure the usability of that $3.312 billion, that money is going to form this independent utility or independent usage. So we had to confirm that for all 4 sections that we are applying for, because we told them that we will not eliminate any of the sections at this stage, because we believe they all, as you already heard before, can meet the rod mark date of September next year. So we will apply for all 4 sections for additional funding, and the magnitude of this additional funding that we will be applying for is approximately $1 billion from the FRA, which, if you match that with 30% from local funds or bond funds, we add up to about $1.4 billion. So we would be able to extend what we had, the $3.3 billion, by approximately 1.4 billion, and that would be the amount that would be applied to the first build phase of this high-speed rail project. We would apply for all four segments of the line, all four sections, the arrow sections of this line, and I will go into the detail tomorrow at the board meeting as to how that is being applied, how that is being offered to be applied.
There's only enough money, though, for only one of those sections.
There's only enough money, of
That's
course,
important.
at the end of the day to build one section, and not all four sections.
Well, I guess you could build more than one section if you chose two sections of the valley.
You're right. That comes out, and you'll see that in the presentation tomorrow, because they start overlapping.
You could link one of the sections.
Yeah, you start linking them up, and you start adding them together.
Did I rest in it? It strikes me that a point of decision at which we would decide to put all of the funding into one corridor is going to be disruptive, to say the least. And that decision needs to be based on some empirical criteria rather than who thinks what about what. I wonder if you thought about creating that criteria so that the judgment can be made when the time comes based on the selection of the best corridor given all circumstances rather than just who is called by who is important.
At this particular stage, Mr. Chairman, as I say, consultation with the FRA, we were given the guidelines from the FRA, what they expect from us to be able to apply for the next round of funding. What they requested from us is to advise them how we would apply the 3.3 billion, the 3.3 billion being 50% arrow fund, 50% one funding, how we would apply this 3.3 billion to each of the four segments, and how we would then ensure independent utility of that investment, and then as the next phase, how we would apply for additional funding so as to enhance the value of the first arrow and bond investment of 3.3 billion. That is the process which has been requested by the FRA for the application of the new funds. This was discussed, as you know, with the Executive and Admin Committee at a board meeting last Friday on the 30th. And that was the process that was, as I say, not recommended, prescribed by the FRA, and furthermore discussed with the committee members on Friday of last week in that committee board meeting.
Well, I guess I have a couple of questions on that. It would seem to be the Operations Committee responsibility to review that kind of a subject and make a recommendation. And I'm wondering why it would go to the Executive Committee before it came to the Operations Committee.
It was a decision at the last board meeting that the Executive and Admin Committee be tasked with exactly that responsibility. Also for reasons that this particular application is to be handed in by Friday this week or the day after tomorrow.
Let me go back, though, to the issue of us establishing criteria for the selection of which corridor is to receive the funding. I would not like to leave that to the FRA. If we're going to be required to fund only one corridor, then this board ought to make that decision. And the board ought to make the decision based on whatever criteria FRA has, but whatever additional criteria we think might be important that isn't in conflict with the FRA criteria.
I cannot speak on behalf of the FRA, but I do not believe it is their intent to make the decision. I don't think that they feel that they are in any position to make that decision. I think the only decisions that they will be able to make is where we do not comply with the environmental process clearance, etc. And by that process, possibly one of the alignments or one or the other of the alignments may not make the schedule. But as you heard today, as we see it, all four can make the schedule. But of course, we don't know what's going to happen between now and September of next year. But we still are of the opinion any of the four segments could therefore qualify for it. And I do not believe that the FRA intends to select, but I can't speak on their behalf. But they've never indicated that they intend to select one.
If that's the case, then Ralph, I think I agree, and I'm talking to Karen Ray and others, I don't believe they want to make those kinds of decisions. Then we'll need to make that decision, but we need to make it based on empirical criteria that would be created, I think, drafted, which would have to be created by you folks and then approved by us.
In fact, to the contrary, I mean, they had requested whether it would be possible at this stage to reduce the sections or the alternatives from 4 to less than 4. And on consultation with the board last Friday, it was agreed that we would not at this particular stage make that selection yet, but obviously the time is going to come for us to have to make the selection through the board.
Again, though, it needs to be based on criteria that we know in advance, so that if a corridor begins to fall outside of the criteria that's established, we know it well enough in advance so those that might be pushing for that corridor have an opportunity to do so. It would be inappropriate to have criteria that are provided after the criteria have been reached. So it would suggest the need for selection criteria to be established fairly soon, so they become a driver for the corridors to comply with it. And then if a corridor can't comply with it, then that corridor is going to be funded.
It's we're in that clearing process to try and ensure that there are no hurdles in our way between now and right now. In fact, we've had some discussions with the FRA also on the rule of particular applicability, RPA, which is what we're going to require statewide, but also today for the shared corridors in shared track corridors in the south to Anaheim, but of course also on the peninsula. And we are talking and in consultation with the FRA regarding how that application should be done, because the application is in preparation. It's just a matter of we now have to add these alternatives to the documents that are being prepared in consultation with the FRA. So once again, we do not believe that this is going to exclude us in any way from receiving the funds or from getting our roadmap in September.
I didn't quite get an answer. Well, maybe I'm not making myself clear. In preparation for making the decision as to which corridor is going to be funded, if only one corridor is being funded, we need to know what criteria that decision will be based upon. Rod not obviously, but will there be other criteria? Cost per mile, ridership per mile, future connectivity to mass transportation opportunities. I can think of a half a dozen off the top of my head, but if I can think of a half a dozen, I'm sure you can think of 100.
I fully agree with you, Mr. Chairman. The issue is, at this stage we're in a competition. I don't want to say it's not a competition, but we're trying to ensure that we retain 4 segments that will qualify. To come up with criteria too early and then possibly find that one of the segments does not qualify, and maybe we put our chances all on the one, that would be premature to make a decision. You are correct, at the right time, I don't believe it's yet, but at the right time, we're going to have to come to the board with certain criteria and give you exactly our recommendation, and based on that recommendation, which will be based on facts and operational and technical inputs and financial inputs, we would have to put a recommendation to the board. But I do think at this stage, as I say, it is a little early because Tony has mentioned right now September next year, but we still have a little ways to go. And surely by early next year, we're going to have to make a decision which one of the segments we're going to give priority to, but not too early.
Let me add one more point, though. I think you'll have a cry of foul all up and down the state for every corridor that was not selected. If the criteria is published so late that it disqualifies segments when it's published, rather than having the segments have an opportunity of qualifying to meet the criteria. So the criteria needs to be a driving force to help all of the quarters hustle and qualify, rather than being a device that, once it's created, already disqualifies, makes it impossible for some of the quarters to meet.
Mr. Chairman, two things on what you said. The first is, we are working with each of the corridors to ensure they meet the criteria. Meet the
If you know
FRA
the criteria, then share it.
No, it's already written. The criteria what the FRA is requiring, we're working with them on that. The question of which to take forward is obviously with the authority board, but we're expecting a decision by the FRA as to whether all four meet the requirements once they're included by October of this year. So we're not talking too far away before we know basically whether they all meet it or not.
I think that is a very important aspect. We believe at this stage that we meet the criteria. In consultation with the FRA, they have not indicated to us directly that we do not meet the criteria. There is a question mark about, and it has been around for a long time, as I think you know, whether the peninsula offers independent utility, because the peninsula does not operate intercity transportation, by the definition of the FRA's intercity operation. But as Tony has mentioned, we're going to send the application now. Based on that application, we understand they will be coming back to us by October, and they will then reconfirm that they believe or do not believe that we meet the criteria of independent utility, which we have to meet with the ARA funds. And we will have to, I believe we'll be fine, but the end decision on that one is an FRA decision, not mine. So we're going to have to see what the FRA council at that particular stage.
Well, I'm not concerned about the FRA criteria. I think it's public.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the criteria that we're going to establish to choose one of those quarters.
I understand. I do.
And that has to be public as soon as you can make it public, so that none of the quarters has the opportunity of saying, you pulled a fast one on us, you created the criteria at the last minute when we couldn't comply, and you disqualified. If they all know what the criteria are in advance, they can all try to meet the criteria, and then it's up to them, each one of those quarters, teams and advocates, to deliver. If they can't deliver, they just get disqualified, they're not going to get funded. But if they get disqualified because that criteria came out at the last minute after they couldn't qualify, then you're going to have an awful lot of angry people. So we need the criteria soon.
Okay. I'd like to take the first bullet in the last three and reiterate what we said at the last STOPS meeting. You mentioned at the start of the meeting, Mr. Chairman, that the state budget might be late. There's lots of talk going around, it could be as late as November. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Just want to put out to the board the knowledge that most, if not all, the consultants before the end of August will run out of money, total. And therefore they're at some risk, and every one of the 700 people working on it and the 100-odd consultants working on it will have to make a decision what they do. So if we don't get the state budget passed, there is a danger that we will find difficulty in meeting the ARA target dates. Just want to put that on the table. Okay.
That news, it's not news, Tony, of course you've been thinking for a long time, but it's news that all of the quarter advocates need to know. Because if they're not communicating with their legislators on both sides of the aisle about this, they're foolish. And we need to help. So somehow we need to have all of the quarter advocates up and down the line knowing that if we don't have the budget, we're going to miss our deadlines. That's going to cost tens of thousands of jobs for this state, and it's going to be immediate.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, we did send a letter to the legislature, including the governor, advising them of this particular issue, and obviously that the lack of a budget could have negative results on finally receiving the ARA funds, because we are not able to pay our consultants a minimum monies as from roughly the end of August. So, the effects thereof, I know up to now they've all indicated they're willing to work, but it's a matter really of how long. But we have advised the legislature and the governor of this.
We
They
also-
are aware of it, but sometimes they have to be really aware of it, because our project is a little different to most of the other agencies or administrations that do normal business in the state.
Well, I think it's our responsibility, knowing the information that you presented, and Tony has stressed a moment ago, to communicate with the stakeholders up and down the state that the project has that jeopardy. So each one of the corridor segments now has coalitions supporting it. Each one of the Linda's statewide consortium has people that are interested. They need to know this, and they need to know it probably reminded every week, in order that they help accomplish the budget as quickly as possible. If we don't stress that, then we're in part culpable for the delay.
We agree with it. Finally, on this is really an overview of the whole document. The other point I'd like to raise, and that Mark jumped in, is that we've had good meetings with BNSF, and this week there are 2 meetings being held with UP, which Chief Executive will be involved with one of them, and Alex Clifford, I think, is in the audience and will be leading the other one. So we're hoping that we can continue to have a dialogue with UP about the issues that they have with us relative to running high-speed trains adjacent to their properties. Mark, you want to comment on?
Nothing further.
Now, each one of the segments, the San Francisco to San Jose, there is a supplemental presentation tomorrow, and unless you have specific questions on what we've raised here, I prefer to leave that. Other than the bottoms and the key issues at the bottom of the paragraphs on the Transbay, we are working with the Transbay Authority closely to continue to review the designs they have for their Transbay terminal, and that's going pretty well. And Bob Doty is looking into one of the snags that we picked up during the last progress meeting with you, and that is the tunnels, the existing tunnels that go into 4th and King, to make sure that we are clear on there with the high-speed rail, and that we can deal with the grandfather laws. In other words, what all the rules and regulations for that tunnel, which are okay from a clearance point of view, are okay from the fire life safety and risk analysis point of view. So if there's no comments, I'd like to move on to Senator Sanders.
Can I go to the first key issue under that item, San Francisco? You note that in the July you indicated that September was to be slipped to October in terms of the alignment.
Yes.
Outside the high-speed train gas.
Yeah.
That will not contribute to a rod knot delay?
No. And in fairness, it's a lot to do with the amount of work that's gone on to support the programmatic document.
As you go through these, Russ, don't hesitate to bring something up that you've noticed, but would you also touch on yourselves any item that you note as being particularly problematic?
Sorry, yeah, go on. I missed Mark again on the PMO on the San Francisco.
Okay, I'll keep you honest. Don't worry. San Francisco to San Jose, I just wanted to say we don't have anything that hasn't been reported previously, but when you mentioned that issues, there's the right-of-way for the light maintenance facility in San Bruno that's still potentially an issue.
And our comment on that is, it's not clear to us whether or not before we have a rod and nod that we can go out and look for purchasing of the right-of-way for maintenance facilities. It's not clear we can do that. It's not at the top of the radar screen right now, but we need to clear that up before we take up that particular aspect.
Is that piece of land in jeopardy of being developed, or?
It is, yes, it is. But the developer knows about our interest in it, and they are willing to work with us as it relates to how that could be developed. It's only fairly recently that we began to home in on that being a sensible place for a layover facility, the light maintenance facility.
Have you communicated with the city so that they could possibly delay zoning or building applications if the developer became?
We are working with the developer of the city. I said to Fresno, the thing I would highlight there, again, it's a supplement tomorrow about the so-called hybrid route to West Chowchilla, and I think that will be gone through in some detail rather than bring that up here at this meeting. I'd like to talk about and highlight the fact we said last time we tried to reduce the number of heavy maintenance facilities. We have not yet done that. They're still in there, and we're working through that particular process. And we said to Fresno is...
the sites for it.
The sites, yes. We're carrying, I think, about 8 sites, and it's a lot too many. So we're getting closer to that, and much will depend on how we move forward with the ARA funds. That may or may not help us make that kind of decision as we move forward with the admin draft and draft the EIRS itself.
Would not, in some cases, the selection of the maintenance site impact the selection of a corridor in those areas?
No.
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 So it shouldn't affect then the rod and nod for the corridor in the area.
Oh, I thought I passed that one. No, I just passed it. And Rod Mason coming back on the interest and I turned over. Yeah, so I turned over from me.
Where are you now?
Well, I said to Fresno I'll finish, and I finished on that one. I'll go to San Jose de Merced, which I passed over back. And the question I have there that I'll probably raise, that there's a discussion here that we would delay the 30% design. It was a question whether or not this would affect the program, the rod and nod, and it will not. The rod and nod for this particular section does not really tie into the 30%. It does tie into, ultimately, the procurement. But that's, San Jose de Merced is unlikely to, almost for sure, not be one of the first construction sections, so I think that's fine.
So this may be a corridor that you would, when your design build contracts go out, you would be offering those at less than a 30%.
No.
Completion in the bid package?
No. We have, in the time scale, we've been able to stage the work. There's plenty of time to finish at 30%. And what we would try and do is to bring that 30% back into the schedule. It's too early to say that if they delayed to complete the rod and nod, that they couldn't pick up the 6-8 weeks or what it is necessary to complete the 30% design. It's not our intention to put out procurement documents that does not have a sensible, practical 30% design package.
All right.
No, we don't have anything really additional on Merced to Fresno, but on San Jose to Merced, we did make one comment about the permissions to enter. There's quite a few permissions to enter for doing the environmental surveys have been received, but there are quite a few that have not yet. And some of these are very large properties, 50, 60 acre ranches, particularly through the Pacheco Pass. So we've got, big voids in the environmental surveys. So we may need to come up with a way to cover that or address that in lieu of this permission to enter, and to otherwise be able to either do those surveys or figure out how we can do without them.
Is the permission to enter held up because of delivery or lack of cooperation by the landowners, or why are they being held up?
I don't know, but I will find out.
I know that attending some of the meetings down in the Gilroy area, there's some, not animosity, I would not use that word, but some concern reflected on the part of the landowners who received the permission to enter letters, thinking that those are something other than to inspect, but rather possibly to do something more serious than inspect. So maybe it may be that we're not communicating with the landowner in a manner that would engender cooperation.
No, it's a point that Mark has picked out. I haven't picked it out. So we'll look at that, get an answer, and sort it out. President of Bakersfield, that's one of our key areas. The question I would bring out there is the question of moving forward, so they're moving into the 30% design range. We have to make some kind of decision about moving on with getting the monuments set down, so we don't delay their start sometime in October. And that comes back to really how important that is, so you know, can we delay that? Because I don't think we're going to have enough money to set up the monument group, and that may or may not delay the start of 30%. If you hear about that, it's not going to affect the final packaging and procurement, but that could, you might get some wind of that in the various notes that are flying around, and I don't want the board to be concerned about it. It's a point I want to raise at this meeting. I would say that we weren't happy with the 15% design at the last meeting in June for that particular section.
50%?
15.
15.
And so I can report that they've redone the 15% designs where we thought they were not as they should be, and there was a meeting today, I don't know the outcome of it, in San Francisco to go right through each one of their drawings and see where we stand. I believe from the over-the-shoulder reviews that's taken place in the last 4 weeks that they have time to know where they're going to go, and that answers, I hope, the question that I raised at the last meeting. We are serious, and you'll see that tomorrow, about the school that came up in Bakersfield.
And second to last stop.
Yeah, and we have met with the authorities down there, with the supervisors of the schools, and we produced optional layouts for the school. The meetings have gone very well. They're very supportive of where we want to go with them, and there'll be continued dialogue. We may well find ourselves in a good position as it relates to that one particular alignment associated with the school. And good cooperation from everybody concerned down in that area, and the board should really know that. I think that's all I want to say on the president of Bakersfield at this stage.
This is a general comment, not associated with President of Bakersfield, but the last bullet there is one that is realized every Senate, that the people that are attending these meetings are getting to the point of being frantic about noise and vibration information. Not that, especially in the areas where there are lower speed systems, 120 mile an hour systems, you don't have much. But they don't know that, and because we're not able to give them the information, they're fearful that we're hiding something.
We have virtually a final document, but what we wanted to add to it was the 24-hour sound noise levels and the 1-hour sound noise level, which we didn't have all the detail for in the document which we did in fact complete a couple of weeks ago. And in the final review with the chief executive, Dan Levin, and a number of other people, we decided to hold it back perhaps for another week once we collected this data, and that would then complete the total document. We would expect to get that out over the next week. 3 days.
2 weeks. Let's say before we get the final sign-off. But yes, we are nearly there, Mr. Chairman. And yes, we did have to add in, because the way noise is measured, it's not just instantaneous noise, it's not measured in instantaneous plus 1 hour noise plus 24-hour noise levels. And we had not specifically covered the 1 hour, 24-hour noise level topics well enough in the document, so we decided to incorporate that. And in fact, 2 days ago we said 2 weeks. We need it out by 2 weeks from then. So within the next 10 days we want to get the document out.
Are we using as the criteria technology? What the international technology are we using?
We're using the guidelines of the FRA. The FRA has guidelines. That's one of the aspects that we got in the document. But the others is yes, we're also using more modern technology, international products that we're aware of and that measurements have been done on. In fact, the sound noise levels of more modern technology lie underneath, further underneath, the FRA document was some years, the data on the FRA document was some years old, which is quite normal, and the more modern systems are even somewhat increasing on that, or improving on that level.
We were told that when we toured the technologies, but we need to have the cognitive proof of that when we present the information. Could I ask one more question? And this, pardon me, dwell on this, but this is one that you get time and time again at every one of the public meetings. Is the data being presented in a manner that people can relate to? So we're talking about
that's a second aspect, and that's why I wanted to also just be sure that you're aware of it. We're talking at the moment of a document which is still more of an engineering document as opposed to a publication that the person in the street could understand. In parallel, we are working together with the communications department to try and make a document that is easily understandable by the person in the street. Noise or sound is not an easy thing to understand at all, and therefore our communications people are busy working at the same time on putting that into a format that people can really understand it, because it is a complicated subject.
Well, I really would hope that we didn't put the engineering document out without having the explanatory, and that we had some draft material that could have been very difficult to defend.
Yeah, we did that.
We're doing it in
I
parallel.
hope just people have a real chance to work some magic on it in terms of using criteria that people relate to, so that if they're 50 feet from a high-speed train, it would sound like such and such at 120 miles an hour, which is what you expect to have going by your house. And the such and such has to be something that they understand, that's universally understood. Yeah, whether it's a car or a truck.
Yeah, the document, even that call it technical document, does make reference to comparisons. Comparisons with other noise types and so on. So there is already that there. But we do believe that it's still complicated, and it's better that the communications people are involved. We're putting together a document that is understood by the person in the street, because it's, it'll be the same data. You'll find the same data in the document. It's just put together in a different way to make it easily understandable.
Well, dBs don't help. Decibels, people don't know what that means.
Unfortunately, we measure in decibels, but you're right. The comparisons and all those type of things will be there. That will make it a lot easier for them to understand.
Okay. Can I move to Bakersfield, Palmdale? One issue on there that, well, there's 2 points I would raise. In the accomplishments, we did finalize the power substation phase break as it relates to the hatchet piece. That's something we pulled out last time as being a technical problem we had. That's now been solved to the satisfaction of everyone in sight. So that's been cleared. Now let's move forward. We had a difference of opinion with Mark relative to the 1-year delay. I was pretty adamant saying it wasn't. I was talking about something related to a transfer of money to do the environmental work 1 season later without delaying the rod and guard. It turned out that there was a separate discussion at the annual work program that said there wasn't enough budget to do it. And once we found that out, we went back and sat down with the regional consultant. And we haven't finalized the issue yet, but we've changed it from being 1 year, or 14 months actually, down to 6 months. And I think that also is not necessarily the delay that should be occurred. And we will be talking further with the URS team on that count.
I would concur with that.
You're both aware of Michael Guerra's comments earlier in the meeting.
Yeah. Can I move to the Palmdale to Los Angeles section?
What I was referring to. I apologize.
Sorry?
That's the section I was referring to. I apologize for getting out of order there.
Well, on that section, there is some a delay on that section relative to the slippage, a 2 months delay, and that's basically due to the changes that have occurred along that alignment relative to the station shifts, the relook at an alternative, the Tacoma wash, and we did agree with the authority and everyone 2 months ago that we would hold to a 2 month slippage. It's not on the critical path for the overall program. It's certainly not on the critical path relative to the ERARA funds, and that still holds. And that's the bullet right at the bottom. It looks the right decision. I don't think we can beat the date, and I don't think beating them to death will make any difference, and it will not affect the overall program. I think the position with the parks is something which, if you've got any comments on that, I would like Dan Levitt to answer. I've already warned him on that, so he doesn't throw a brick at me. But
This is the first bullet under key issues.
yeah, is there any comment you have on that? And so I think Dan's better placed because he was involved with it far more than I was.
Dan, you want to make a comment? Well, it would be comforting if we didn't go to parks, you know.
Yes.
We learned about that with Henry Goldmark.
Yes. We do have alternative that does avoid the parks. We do have a couple that do go through. We're continuing to work with parks, try to find something that is at least acceptable to them for us to investigate. So work with parks to try to meet the criteria allowed. So at least look at an option like this.
As a general policy, and I don't know anything about this specific study, if we don't actually have to go to a park, it's better to eliminate that alternative early, because if nothing excites the general population, the general environmental population, than a route to a park, even if it's effective.
Mark, any comment on that?
The only additional thing I had on Palmdale to LA was, the continuing issue with the shared right-of-way with Metro and UP, which I guess there's some meetings coming up, which hopefully will work toward resolving that. And there's just one other, it's kind of a minor issue, but it's a Caltrans project that's underway that would ultimately conflict with the high-speed rail project. And so there's probably a need to coordinate with Caltrans and maybe elevate things with Caltrans to avoid us coming in and taking out something that they've just built. It's the only other.
The meeting with the UP is, to look at that particular aspect, is tomorrow, Friday, in Sacramento. I think with Alex, he's taking the lead on that one. As far as the Caltrans position is concerned, we have met with them. We understand where they're going, and we're ongoing discussions, so we're working together and seeing what we can clear with them on that particular aspect.
Is there a chance to set up a standard procedure that any of their new projects along the route would have to go through when initially route?
That system is in place. We have that already with Caltrans. And the equivalent of a PSR for the whole route has been laid out and with the regional consultants, the regional managers. We have MOUs with them. We have a working group. We tie pretty closely to the Caltrans team all the way through the state.
I didn't understand then how could there be a problem with something they're designing?
Well, it's part of that series of meetings that this came out. I was just replying to the fact that we're actually working with them under this system, so we know about it.
So it's a new system.
The system is new, yes. Knowledge of that particular site is not new. We've been working with them for a while on it.
I think we should do everything we can do to avoid having them build something that's going to be in conflict with our height restrictions. So if we're not getting satisfaction there, you need to elevate that to the board quickly. So we can do battle with the Caltrans Chief Governor's Office. And egg on everybody's face if we have to go down and knock out an overcrossing to what they just built.
I understand. Let's see, where are we at? Los Angeles to Anaheim. I've got no real comment based on what we said in the June report that I want to highlight. I think we made a huge progress in June and continue to do in July because we are focusing in that section on the outer funds, and that's what really took most of our time in that time scale in July. What we said for the June report holds true. It was an extraordinarily good June. We came up and agreed with all the railroads on the shared track, the upgrade station, and there are still issues that have to be resolved, but we appear to have got the broad base of what we're looking at in tow down there. And the outer funds will help us decide on how far we go and what we do next.
No, I concur with that.
Los Angeles to San Diego. The only comment I think I want to raise as the day seems to go on these things is on the key issues. There's a comment made about 12 minutes to turn the trains in Tokyo. Well, that's probably correct. I think it's 13 minutes, but they have something like 2 people per car to do that. And if you've got 12 cars, that's an awful lot of people. Every 3 minutes you have to have on the platforms to turn those trains around in that time scale. And there's a straight run through. In our case, it's not. You've got to turn them around. So
To San Diego.
It's in San Diego, in LA, or it's in 4th and King. You can't do that. And so the statement is correct that the operational sequence of that applied to this system is difficult at best. If anybody wants to comment on that, they can do, but it's very expensive to turn the trains in that time, and we couldn't do that because of the geography and the layout of the stations we have. I don't really want to. I raised that because it was a comment that made by Art Leahy, and I want to put it on the table.
I think Art's concern is real. It certainly will affect the desirability of our bid eventually. If it takes a significantly longer period of time to turn the trains around, you're not going to get as much use out of the trains. You may not get as attractive a bid.
Well, the fastest turnaround of the trains that we know outside that is 30 minutes for high-speed trains, and that's what we're flying in Transbay, and that's what we're flying in Arctic at the end stations right now. And a lot of the reasons why we can't do it any faster is not so much on the people necessarily on the platform, but we can't get the trains in and out. The configuration of the track to do that at the end station won't allow us to do it. In Tokyo, you haven't got a step end station, it's a through station, and you put enough people on, you probably can. I think the only thing I'd say to Los Angeles and San Diego, they are continuing very strongly with their outreach, and I think there's a tremendous enthusiasm right through that corridor to work with the high-speed rail team, and there are no negatives that I know of. There is a challenge, which has been raised though, relative to the Los Angeles corridor and how that connects to San Diego, which has come up in a stronger fashion in July, and we're trying to work with the people on that to see what we can do to make sure that it fits into what we are designing on the Los Angeles corridor itself. And I really have got nothing more to say on that corridor right now.
We concur with that.
And to save some time on the Merced to Sacramento and the Elephant corridor, there are no issues at this stage in time. The team seems to be working okay. If there's any issue at all, it's in the fact of the funding. We have gone for additional funding for that section already, and if we get the funding we're asking for each of the sections, it will help them move forward in the annual work program 10 and 11. If not, it will be at somewhat low key in moving forward with their environmental document work. John, I don't know if you want to comment on that? No? On the engineering side, the issues that we have completed is the outline with the Caltrans for the project reports, the one I touched on briefly, Mr. Chairman.
But maybe skipping over the outline for it.
I'm sorry, it's on the environmental team heading.
I'm lost.
It follows the engine. I think what I will number the pages next time.
All right.
It'll be a lot easier for you and for me, I think. I'm moving from the ultimate corridor page. We're going to Merced, Sacramento, from Los Angeles, San Diego, Merced to Sacramento, ultimate corridor. I discussed very, very briefly, and I then turn over to the engineering. So the next page is in fact the engineering, which is a report on where we stand currently as far as the end of June with the engineering reports. Mr. Chairman, are we okay on that page?
Yes. Can you so you're hiring a new scheduling person?
He's on board, yeah. The senior schedule.
It might be very short tenure if you don't get our budget.
I hope we get up with it. I think out of all the writing down here, the one thing that I think you might find interesting, not in June, but the updating of the information, which you can read down here. We have met with over 9 firms in the last 6 weeks that are involved with developing the positive train control, the ERMTS systems, international firms that have come over and have outlined their plans and what they're doing. And we collected those as part of the overall assessment of how we want to move forward relative to the signaling train control system. That was a very positive move, and I think we made. We've collected an awful lot of information. And that is helping us work with one of the bullets down here in going back to Washington and trying to find ourselves a frequency that we can use for the high-speed rail here in California because it's unavailable at the moment. So that background internationally has allowed us to consolidate where we need to be as it relates to the frequencies and putting that back to Washington to try and resolve the situation as to what is available, what can be available, and how that applies to California, maybe the rest of the country.
FRA has a study out on that now because it's a common problem across the nation, isn't it? And I don't think the study's been concluded, but maybe some of the data from it would be helpful. Karen Ray would have access to that.
Okay.
Yep.
Nothing further on engineering?
As I turned the page without the number, it was the environmental one I was calling. And in that sense, we have the outline of what's required for a detail. Well, we've got the detailed schedule now for the environmental pieces for the 4 ARA sections, and we are continuing to complete it for the whole line relative to a very detailed report as to when the documents are due, the date they're due, who's doing them, a look ahead, so we can keep a much firmer track on the documents that are necessary to complete the rotten yard. That was concluded. We owe the authority a final review on that, which probably will be this week. They've had the opportunity to review them. they weren't necessarily correct. We made the corrections. I believe we have a good document now that allows us to put our finger on where we're going, how we're going to get there, as it relates to the environmental documents.
I'll just add there that the PMO is going to be reviewing the PMT's resource-loaded schedule for the review of all the environmental studies and documents.
That's a process where we can stub our legal toe if we're not awfully careful. Please dot all the T's and cross all the I's.
Okay. On the railroad operations side, really, we did an awful lot of work in June, as you can see. Just to update you, we've been working on the ARA funds as it relates to the independent utility, what kind of operating schedule. We're working with the BN, the Department of Rail, with Amtrak, and with the OCTA and FTA people, and putting together the actual modeling of the trains, can we see an improved system, can we see an improved ridership on that. In the Central Valley, for example, we've raised the trains from 79 miles an hour to 125 miles an hour, and that saved 1 hour and 18 minutes on the run from the north down to Bakersfield. So there are important things that are coming out of this program for that independent utility before we get there with our high-speed train. And that's been a focus of the Rail Operations Group, whilst at the same time they've concluded the first of a number of drafts that's required for the rule of particular applicability relative to the actual rail system, the operations side of it. And there's a draft of that that's currently being reviewed with the PMT. And finally, on the program control side of it, we believe that we are working on the earned value as we've been in discussions with the PMO. I promised the CEO that we would have something in July, no later than August. I think we will probably be able to have it for the July report, the way things are looking. And with that, I conclude my statement. Any comments?
Nothing further, gentlemen.
Have the regional managers been something? I don't know if I'm using the right word.
Regional directors, you're talking now authority regional directors?
Yes.
No, I'll make a statement on that tomorrow as well. We are in the process. Of course, we are still budget restrained, but we have the recruiter out. The recruiter reported back to us yesterday that he has, I think, something like 35 applicants, resumes, and I know one more came in yesterday to my desk, so there's at least 36 in. And so we're going to be, or he's going to be in a thinning out process in the next few weeks, and in the third week of the month, we will be getting together with the recruiter. We'll be starting to thin out and start talking to candidates. Again, subject at the end of the day to budget restrictions, because that is still an issue we have for finally employing those people, but we'll have to find some way around it, get some way of employing these people. We'll have to try and see whether the governor or somebody can help us. But we need these people. We're going to need them very soon. The process is good.
We need them now.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the people have to be doing an awful lot of coordinating. Okay. Russ, do you have any questions? Thank you very much for your report. Could I ask a couple of questions? Maybe it will be of you, but I think it's more Rudolph. Two things popped up during the process. One is terms that you used in regard to describing FRA's concern about the San Francisco-San Jose corridor as being not having intercity utility.
You're correct. They have not told us that this in any way is going to disqualify that application. But they did tell us that the Caltrain service, and it's been known to the authority before, the Caltrane service, by the definition of the FRA, is not an intercity service. And as these funds, the ARA funds, as well as the next round of funding, in fact apply to high-speed and intercity rail services, this of course is a little bit of an issue. Although they're quite well aware of the fact that the system that we will be building will finally, of course, be applied to high-speed rail. There's no question, and therefore intercity and high-speed rail. It is it's the phase that we actually never hope will apply, and that is the independent authority of the independent utility. We do not hope that we ever have to use the independent utility phase, but that we will be able to continue to build the line as a high-speed rail line. The FRA, of course, is aware of that as well. And I have my hopes that they will accept that the Caltrane service is an acceptable alternative to, because finally they will be operating on those lines that we will be building, that we will be able to have a benefit. They will be able to have a benefit out of that. But the Caltrane service falls under, is a commuter service as opposed to a intercity service. It's, the minor definitions, but by the book that is the difference.
I'm very familiar with that debate nationally, but I don't understand why there'd be a differentiation between the San Francisco-San Jose corridor and the Los Angeles-Anaheim corridor on that subject, on that topic.
Because Los Angeles-Anaheim operates intercity service operated by Amtrak. The Surfliner services there are intercity services. So it's not the local service, it's not the local commuter service that is being used, it's actually the Amtrak Surfliners that will be operating on that track. And that qualifies as intercity by definition.
I think I had a smoke ring blowing around me there. I understand the words, but I don't understand the
It
lyrics.
is just the words.
Okay, that answers that question. Can I go to another question now? And this relates to the comment that the young lady had at the beginning of the meeting about having our meetings open to the public. I've heard rumors about a meeting held in San Francisco in Board Member Kopp's office. Was that a noticed meeting? I did not receive a notice.
It was the board meeting last Friday.
Oh, wait.
Communication meeting.
I'm sorry.
Three
It was the
locations.
executive meeting.
There were 3 locations.
I
They were all
understand.
noticed.
I
And they were all
understand.
advertised.
All right. I'm with you and I understand. Okay, Russ, do you have anything further? Okay, then I would assume that we will meet again at our Wednesday proceeding, first Thursday in September, in Sacramento. We'll try to meet at 3 o'clock instead of 4 because we tend to run over.
There will be some scheduling changes. A little. I did communicate with the board that we may have to look at the schedule for that Wednesday and the Thursday,
All right.
because of the many agenda items that we've got from the board for that particular September session.
Can we have those schedule changes early though, so we can accommodate that?
We will discuss them.
If there's nothing else to come before this committee, then we are adjourned.
Oh, shit, can't shut it down immediately. I was making that joke. No comment. You concur. Movie thing. Remember Catch It If You Can with DiCaprio? He's a doctor, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's a father, basically. He's a doctor and basically learns everything from watching whatever. Won't be 50 or whatever. So that's all he does. Doctor, you concur. I'm gonna help him clean up some of the stuff here.